Welcome back to Gameday Tarps episode 6. Boys, the big one has finally happened. Erik Karlsson to the Pittsburgh Penguins, helped out by the Montreal Canadiens. Let's get some words on what we think has happened on the day it was supposed to happen. They said Sunday it was going down. It went down on Sunday. Let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, boys, the big move has happened. This is the biggest trade for the Steel City since Phil Kessel went to the Penguins. And let me say, three-way trade between the Pittsburgh Penguins, the San Jose Sharks, and the Montreal Canadiens. And you know what? For me personally, I think, the Pittsburgh Penguins did win this trade. I mean, they're getting a bit younger with having Kyle Dubas come in, fixing Ron Hextall's dumpster fire of a so-called retool of the team the last few years. And so in this package, Kyle Dubas was able to acquire EK, Rem Pitlick, Dylan Hamelick, and a 2026 third-round draft pick via San Jose. And then going back towards the Sharks, we had a conditional 2024 first-round draft pick. Kyle Dubas offed Mikael Granlund's dumpster fire of a contract too, and we had Jan Ruda heading back to San Jose in that deal, and Montreal sending Mike Hoffman, which was another good move by the Montreal Canadiens because they've been wanting to off his contract for a while. And then to Montreal via Pittsburgh, there was a 2025 second round draft pick, Jeff Petrie, Casey DeSmith, and Nathan Laguerre from the Pittsburgh Penguins. What are you guys' thoughts on that package?
Well, I know for a fact none of us think that San Jose won this trade. They just did what they could. Now I think that they could flip Granlund, Ruda, and Hoffman for some assets and then, continue their rebuild. But if they keep these guys, it's a really confusing direction for their team. So I'm not sure what they're doing. I think they are going to flip them if they have good years, especially Jan Ruda. Jan Ruda just, off winning 2 cups with Tampa in the last, 5 years. He's a value add for lots of playoff teams. So he'll be easy to flip. But my winner is Montreal, just based on the fact of what team did the best to reach the goal that they're trying to achieve. Montreal shedded Hoffman's contract that they didn't want, like you noticed. They got DeSmith, who they're probably going to flip for just, a normal asset, but they're just acquiring assets. They got a prospect that didn't work out in Pittsburgh. They got Petrie, who they're going to flip, and they got Pittsburgh to retain some cap. So if they retain 50% of what's left, he's at like a $2 million cap hit, and every team's going to want Jeff Petrie at $2 million for a playoff push. And then they get the second round pick. All that basically of pure assets just to ditch Mike Hoffman's contract. So for me, it's a win for Montreal just based on what they wanted. And why I don't think it's Pittsburgh is because you look at who they lost on defense for who they got. Yes, Karlsson's going to, he scored 100 points. Maybe he's going to get 70 to 90, let's say, this year. But Ruda's a good depth defenseman. Petrie's a good depth defenseman. Maybe not at his price tag, but a good depth defenseman nonetheless. You're just looking at who are they playing now, and it's going to be a tough sled for them to find guys other than Letang and Karlsson to push them through the playoffs. You look at teams, they have a full range of grit or skill, and they need that to win. Pittsburgh just now has skill, very minor depth defense on the left. They have Graves and Pedersen, and then they have P.O. Joseph as their 50, and then their 60 is kind of yet to be determined of who really it could be. And I just don't see the D Corps as being a winning D formula in the NHL. They're going to get points, but they are going to be a liability on the back end.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Riley. Montreal pretty much just got pieces to help build their team for the future. I don't think Montreal's probably in a win-now mode, so that definitely helps them out. Financially for Pittsburgh, I think that is not the right move. I mean, it's a cool move, but it didn't help them financially whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, everyone and their dog knows that the Pittsburgh Penguins are still in win-now mode, boys. I mean, having come in, like I alluded to earlier with Ron Hextall and his retool for the last few seasons, I mean, the average age of that team was about 31 years, and now having Kyle Dubas come in and just absolutely sending hauls out of players for a total revamp. The average age on that team now is 29 years of age, and just some notables coming in is like Riley Smith, Ryan Graves. We have Vinny Hinostroza, we have Will Butcher, and we have a nice solid backup going now in Alex Nedeljkovic. Yeah, and then notables going out was Jason Zucker, Brian Dumoulin, who I personally believe they should not have let walk to Seattle, but I mean, that was a very depth D piece that they've had for the last number of years, actually. And then, like you alluded to, Michael Granlund, Dustin DeCarlo, Karski and having Nick Bonino, those two come back for a second rodeo with the Penguins, I don't think was a solid move by Ron Hextall bringing those guys back. That was just not it. I mean, especially Nick Bonino, like he's getting up there in age, and you know he was all part of that HBK line during the Cup runs of 16 and 17 with Hagelin, Bonino, and Kessel. I mean, those days are long gone. I mean, he's not the player he once was for the playoff push that they had then. Denton Heinen, and we got guys like Jan Ruda. I liked Jan Ruda coming in, you know, as a solid, good depth piece to play with Chris Letang and Dumoulin even. But yeah, I mean, personally, I still think that the Pittsburgh Penguins did win this trade, and apparently they still have another move to be made here soon. We don't know when, but Kyle Dubas ain't done making moves yet, so it should be interesting to keep an eye on.
Well, also, on the bad move financially, I mean, you got Crosby's contract coming up in 25-26, and you got Malkin's contract going up the year after. So Karlsson's contract lasts longer than both those guys. What are you going to do?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's crazy to think about that. Like, you know, getting Karlsson, like, is he going to repeat again with that Norris candidate winner of last year, having that over 100-point season, you know? He could be a fluke, or, you know, he could be producing with a guy like Chris Letang. I mean, Kyle Dubas has on his hands again another core four, having Erik Karlsson come onto this team. But I mean, it was so unfortunate to have such a great caliber player on and off the ice like Erik Karlsson having to, you know, be on the losing end of that, you know, or conference finals in 2017 against the second overtime winner by Chris Kunitz and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, you know, it'll be a nice little redemption for him now to be on the winning side of things, because Pittsburgh is still in win now mode. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens this season if, you know, he can still live up to the, you know, potential of being a top scorer in this league.
What I'm confused at with Dubas, though, is like, if you wanted a core four, why didn't you just stay in Toronto where they're young and they're skilled and, you know, you had a pretty good team around them? Like, here you went to a team that's on the tightest of timelines to win. You put so much pressure on this group to win, and you don't have this incredible depth anymore. Like, you look at what Toronto just did with Brad Treliving. Toronto is far and away the better team this year than Pittsburgh is. Like, there's no question about it with, you know, the Bertuzzis, the Domies, like who they were adding and who they were able to get on their team. To me, if you wanted a core four, why didn't you just stay with the one you had? Where, yes, things were going to get hard with Nylander and with Matthews, but at the end of the day, things are even harder here. You just signed Karlsson to like 38 years old at $10.5 million, or not signed, but added. And it's like, where does that go? Now you have Crosby coming up. I don't think Crosby's going to be so bad in 3 years that he's going to take a discount. Malkin might be a little bit worse. Maybe he wants to come back. Maybe he retires, but he probably is going to still be around the $7 million dollar frame. So now you're like, what's the team adding?
Another notable there is Jake Gensel, boys. His contract's up next season.
Yeah.
And he's only 28 years old, and he's currently making $6 million.
Right, so what are they going to do with him, right? I mean, like I said, I think last podcast, boys, like Jake Gensel has been consistently Pittsburgh's top 3 scorer, if not top 2. And I mean, you know, like you said, Riley, like having Toronto with all that grit signings and those players, like that's what Pittsburgh lacks. Like, yeah, you can get all the skill in the world you want, but it's not going to win you all the games. Like, you need guys like, you know, they had Ryan Reeves a few years ago, and that was a really good piece, you know? We were talking about having, you know, certain star players having these bodyguards, like just really looking out for them. And I think having Ryan Reeves on the Penguins way back when, you know, to be there with Sidney Crosby, like that's a good depth piece and grit that, you know, the Penguins lack. And just maybe Kyle Dubas might, you know, have that last signing that he's planning to do to have that, you know, grit piece. But, you know, even talking with him, like he said he was going to go nowhere other than Toronto. And then now look at him, he's with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I do agree, Brad Treliving has been doing a phenomenal job rebuilding that team.
Well, that seems to be the word in hockey lately. You know, look at Johnny Gaudreau. You know, I want to resign in Calgary. Leaves. Dubas, I want to resign in Toronto. Leaves. Is Austin Matthews next? What about Nylander? Are they both going to leave? They both say, oh, we want to sign here. Well, there's not enough money for both of them to sign for what they want. Yeah, there's no way.
Talk the talk or walk the walk, boys.
But there's also not enough money for Pittsburgh to keep those core of guys all together and still be a winning team. A couple guys are going to have to go to be able to re-sign your franchise player Crosby if Malkin wants to stay. And yeah,
their best case scenario is he retires. That's honestly the best case scenario. But that's not a win now scenario for them. That's just their best financial scenario so that they can pay Gensel more and pay these guys more. Right, Gensel's probably going to sign a 1 or 2 year deal next year just to like wait till the cap goes up. Then he'll cash in once the Malkins, Letangs are older and maybe retired, and try to cash in with this team at like $9 million a year. But if he's still producing the same, but it's just wild.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh has a dark future coming up if they keep doing stuff like this. I mean, like, you know, your draft capital and, you know, all these, you know, very good superstars overaging now. It's like, the Crosbys, the Malkins, and now the Eric Karlssons, like, that's their cash cows, man. Like, just, you can't be putting your all chips on the table for these couple guys when, you could just be building around for the future. So, I don't know. It'll be weird to see. We'll have to just watch what the season unfolds here, boys.
This is coming from the guy that chose Pittsburgh as the winner, boys. Just saying.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like I said,
You gotta pick a side, boss.
You need some skill, but or you have all the skill in the world, but you do need some grit. But I think they could be coming out as the favorites to go all the way again this year, boys.
All right, we had a couple more signings round out throughout the week here. We had Matt Dumba signing finally in Arizona like we expected for his 1 year, $3.9 million. Martin Jones signs in Toronto for a 1 year, $875K. Puya Suter to the Vancouver Canucks for 2 years, $1.6 million. And the Devils sign another brother combo with Cal Foote joining his brother Nolan Foote, also with the Hughes brothers there, so that's a pretty cool story that they have. There was also a fun story that has now recently been kiboshed kind of in that Yager was potentially coming to Pittsburgh as a 51-year-old to sign a 1 year contract. Now that would have nailed the hammer in the coffin for the Penguins not being competitive. Like you're so desperate, you have a 51-year-old player on your roster. No matter who Yager is, he's probably the best hockey athlete in history in terms of keeping his body in shape and playing longevity, in today's game, and you can't bring a guy like him back. It just would look so bad for the team. It would be a good marketing ploy, but that's like if they were rebuilding. Bring back Yager, market the crap out of it, sell the jerseys, sell the t-shirts, sell the bobbleheads, but now it's just, no. With them saying that they're going all in, how do you go all in and sign a 51-year-old? So I'm glad it was fake. I'm glad it didn't turn out, and it's just not something that I would be a fan of happening.
I mean, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, definitely cool. Some people, that's probably their idols. That'd be awesome if they did it. But yes, it would be a bad move, bad look in Pittsburgh for sure.
Yeah, total cash cow again. Just to fill the stands. Like you said, Riley, the bobbleheads, the t-shirts, the jerseys. He had the best time in his career, in his prime, when he got drafted by the Penguins and he won the 2 cups. So I don't know. I think it would be kind of dumb. It'd be cool if he was in a management role or something, or even a scout. But as a player, I really don't see it coming to fruition. It'd be dumb.
He's going to play pro till he's 90 because he owns Kladno, so he's never going to stop. So he won't come back to the NHL if it's not a gig to play, I don't think.
A 1-game retirement or something would be cool, but a 1 year, oof.
Yeah, and it's a totally different league over here in the NHL. Everybody knows it's tougher, it's faster, and I don't think he could keep up, honestly.
Well, I think that went to show with his short stint in Calgary. He only got 7 points and only one goal. So, yeah, I think that age definitely showed in the NHL.
And that was almost, 6, 7, 8 years ago now?
Exactly.
It was a while ago now. Maybe not that long ago, but he's 51 now. I think he was 43 or something. Now he's 51. It would just be ridiculous to think that he could come in and contribute. I looked, he got 14 points this year for his Czech League team. So, how's he going to get more than 14 points in the National Hockey? I don't care if he's playing with Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Karlsson on the power play on a 5-on-3 with a wide open back door. He's just not going to get that many points.
Well, exactly. In Calgary, they tried matching him with Johnny Gaudreau, who could probably almost play with anybody, and it didn't work.
But a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, he's really fast, and having say a Yager and a Gaudreau going up on a 2-on-1 or a 2-on-0 break, is Yager gonna be able to keep up with a guy like that?
Yeah, you can only wait for so long.
Oh, exactly.
One guy looking like he's just swimming in mud coming up the ice, and the other guy's just flying. It's Yager and him leave the defensive end at the same time. Yager's at the red line, and Johnny's already at the net. There's no way that was gonna work out long term.
Guy's just absolutely freaking gassed.
All right, boys, let's talk about some absolute crap that has gone on now, which is just released. The QMJHL, Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, has banned fighting in the league, and it comes with some steep sanctions as well. For starters, as soon as a fight occurs, those engaged must systematically be ejected from the game. Any player found to have instigated the fight will also receive an automatic 1-game suspension. The person declared to be the aggressor during the fight will receive a minimum minimum 2-game automatic suspension. And lastly, in addition to game misconduct, an automatic game suspension is imposed starting with the player's second fight of the season. The suspension is in addition to the sanctions described in the preceding paragraphs. So we're talking about you get kicked out of a game. If you instigated it, you get 1. If you were throwing more punches than the other guy, you get an additional 2. So you've been kicked out of the game you're in. That's 1. You get a second game. You get 2 more games for 4. And then if it's your second fight, you get an additional game for a potential of 5 suspended games just for being a guy who is more of a role player, like a fighter or a tough guy. It's going to absolutely kill players' potential to make it to the league if that's their role. Like, could you imagine if a guy like Tom Wilson is coming up through the QMJHL right now and he's not allowed to fight now? How is he supposed to leave his mark other than he's a big hitter to show that he can, stick up for his teammates and he's willing to? And they're complaining all the time about this is children fighting children. The majority of the league are not 16 and 17-year-old kids. They're the 18, 19, and 20-year-old adults that are playing this league. Like, legally in Canada, that is the adult age. 19, you can drink. 19, you can gamble. Like, how can they think that these guys aren't in the right mind to make these decisions to stick up for themselves or to change the shift in momentum? Like, I was even thinking about it earlier when we were talking, Dakota, about how at the Memorial Cup, what are the rules going to be? You have the Q that doesn't fight. You have the O that does suspensions for some fighting, and the WHL that does none. No suspensions, no real penalties for fighting other than the 5-minute major. Other than, I think if you go over 5 fights, you get like an extra game or something. So not much there. But when you look at the Memorial Cup, let's look back to when Peterborough versed Kamloops. First game, Kamloops pumped Peterborough 10-3, and they came back and played them in the winner takes all to get to the semifinals. And Kamloops was winning that game, and in comes the defenseman from Peterborough, Chase Stillman, who makes a huge hit right at the blue line on Semenoff of the Blazers, and then in comes one of their other top 6 players, Caden Bankier, to step up for him, and he got absolutely pumped by Stillman, and that allowed Peterborough to come back and win that game, knocking Kamloops out of contention for the Memorial Cup. Yes, Peterborough did lose the next game anyways, but it gave them a chance at least to say they had a shot. They were terrible to start that tournament. They got gifted a game versus Quebec because Quebec knew they were in the finals, and they took kind of a night off versus Peterborough, and that's the only reason why they even had a shot. But they took it to Kamloops, won that game, all because he stepped up and fought that guy. Now, all he got was a 5-minute major for fighting, and the game went on. That's the type of momentum shift that is going to be missing from the QMJHL when star players get hit, when guys step up, and when energy is shifted. Like, you cannot replace that, even with a big hit. Like, a big hit's just a big hit. If the player comes back and scores on you 2 minutes later, it's not a big deal. But when you fight a guy, take him out of the game for 5 minutes, and you hit a big star, it's a huge momentum shift for the team. I just can't see how the QMJHL thinks this is smart for the growth of these kids, because they can still go to the AHL and they can fight. They can still go to the NHL and fight, ECHL and fight. Like, pros is fighting, and I just don't see how they think that this is preparing their guys for the future. I can see, sanctioning suspensions for 20-year-olds fighting 17 and 16-year-olds, or 19-year-olds fighting 17 and 16-year-olds. Maybe a 1-game suspension. Don't go out and instigate a fight versus a kid. But if a kid, instigates a fight versus you, then you can respond and not get a suspension. But stuff like that where it's situational based, not just punishing the whole league and punishing guys whose job it is to fight. I'm not happy about it. I think it's just a terrible choice, and I don't think it's going to benefit anyone in the league, in the attendance, in ticket sales, anything. It's just a total negative for me.
Oh, brother, from what I've seen online, I know a lot of people, including myself and you, just not happy with that decision. I mean, CHL games are exciting to watch, and and fighting is part of the game of hockey. I mean, we don't see it too much in the NHL these days, but in the CHL is quite frequent. I remember the couple games ago, I went to go see the Kamloops Blazers and Vancouver Giants. There was a really good Donnybrook tilt there, and even the last OHL game I attended against the Kitchener Rangers versus the Windsor Spitfires, like you were saying earlier there, Riley, that, it's sportsmanlike to stick up for your teammates, and that's what happened. Liam Greentree got blindsided by one of the Kitchener Rangers, and the boys stepped up for him, and they fought. There wasn't exactly too much of a suspension-worthy hit, but it was very dirty, and you know what? Just fighting should not be coming out of the league, and you know what? I hope to God that it doesn't come to the OHL and the Western Hockey League as well, because tempers flare. It's in human nature to get a little bit aggressive, especially when you're playing your heart out there on the ice, game in and game out, for your whole team, and there are going to be people out there to get under your skin, and it's going to piss you off. So I don't know. It just I think it's a bad call by the league officials in the queue.
Well, exactly like you're saying. What's going to happen when tempers are rising on a game that your team is either going going to make the playoffs or not. The tempers are going to be high, or even well into a playoff series. You could be game 3, game 4, series all tied up, and you got, 10 minutes left in a game. It's going to come down to a goal or whatever, or someone gets smoked and guys got to step up. Like, what are you going to do when you're mad at that guy or something? Or you want to spark the team? You going to go and hug him?
Well, yeah, like, hey, sorry, I broke your nose, but, that will shift the momentum of the game. Riley, you were saying the Memorial Cup, like, Caden Bankier fought the guy on Peterborough because he came after and cheap-shotted Matt Semenoff. And, that there alone shifted the entire momentum of the rest of that game. And then
fired them up.
Yeah, and then Peterborough came back and ultimately, unfortunately, won the game in overtime. So it was extremely unfortunate, but that's just part of hockey. Fighting is a part of hockey. You cannot take it out.
Exactly, and look at how good, they were talking about Quebec was, and obviously Quebec did win, but imagine if, guys could just hack Nathan Gaucher in the ankle and, break his ankle, or, cross-check him in the ribs and break his ribs and not have to worry about the 6'5" defenseman coming to beat the crap out of them. Makes no sense to me why the teams would want to risk their star players being targets. The Quebec League is known to be a little more soft, but there are still probably a good 2 to 3% of guys who make the team as a role where they're bang and crash. They're guys who are going to be taking everybody out, and their job is stick up for, Nathan Gaucher if he gets hit from behind. Go out there and start a fight to change the momentum. It's nothing any of these guys have to do, but this role has been established for 100 years in this league, and yes, it's been getting less and less. Gordie Howe literally did it all the time, where he would just pound guys' faces in, as an all-star in the league. But now, yes, it's getting less and less, but these guys are vital. Pat Maroon for Tampa Bay, right? Vital piece for protecting that team and making teams back off. Ryan Reeves hasn't won one yet, but name a winning team that hasn't got him lately. The Leafs, the Penguins, like you mentioned, the Wild, who were trying to win. Everyone is being... And who did the Wild replace him with when they noticed they didn't have him? Right away, Pat Maroon to the Wild, because they couldn't get Revo back, right? You just look at it, and it's such an important part to have one guy on the team at least who can do that, and not having guys be able to come up through the queue with that skill of fighting anymore it's just a detriment to all of hockey. It doesn't even just hurt their league. It hurts prospects coming up in the league, and it hurts guys from Quebec being known as fighters in the NHL. It just hurts everything.
You're setting them up to pretty much be soft. And
exactly.
then when they come into the league in the NHL, they're just going to be absolutely soft. They ain't going to be able to take a hit. They ain't going to be able to stick up for their teammates in the big leagues. That's just, detrimental.
It's already the softest league in the CHL.
Oh, exactly.
They have the least amount of fights, and I get, it's not really a stretch to say that they're taking fighting out, because it's not like it was every night in that league, but it's still there, and it's still an important part. I can't see it.
And there's always going to be a dirty play in every league that's going to set a team off. And, what are you going to do? Go up to that guy and be like, hey, I didn't like that you hacked my guy? You know what he's going to say back to you? What are you going to do? Have fun getting suspended, bud.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, attack me. You're going for 5. You're going for 5. And there's only 65 games this year.
Throw the first punch, bud. I dare you.
Settle it like men, boys. That's what you're going to frickin' do, okay?
Well, and those players are still needed, You get McDavid that's going to get smoked or something. No one's going to step up for him.
Yeah, part of why Darnell Nurse did get paid so much of his $9.25 atrocity contract is at least because he drops the mitts. Because if McDavid gets hit and Nurse is on the ice and he's the tough guy on the ice, you bet those gloves are coming off and he's going to go pound the crap out of whoever, or get pounded. It doesn't matter which way. Your job is just to drop the mitts. It doesn't matter which way it goes for you. Your job is to show your team, I'm here for the boys. Here come the gloves. They're flying off and we're going to do this. I might break my hand. He might break my face. Who knows what's going to happen? But we're doing it because my guy just got pumped and it's my responsibility to step up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're getting literally paid. There's guys out there that literally get paid to go out there and just be freaking goons.
Nick Delorier, French. He is from the Quebec League.
Right.
I was telling Dakota earlier, George Larocque. We would not have George Larocque if the Quebec League did not have fighting when he was coming up. All these guys that have come through the queue and have been fighters and excel at it, they have important roles in the league, and you're killing that potential in so many players. All right, so they just released as well the power rankings / odds for next year. Now I'm only going to go over the top 16 here. At 16, they have the Seattle Kraken, 15, the Calgary Flames, 14, the Minnesota Wild, 13, Pittsburgh Penguins, 12, Los Angeles Kings, 11, Tampa Bay Lightning, 10, Boston Bruins, 9, Florida Panthers, 8, Dallas Stars, 7, New York Rangers, 6, Vegas Golden Knights, 5, Colorado Avalanche, 4, Edmonton Oilers, 3, New Jersey Devils, 2, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the best odds to win the Stanley Cup in 2024 are the Carolina Hurricanes. Who do you guys think are kind of misplaced there? For me, I have 2. Number 1, I don't know how Vegas fell to 6th when they barely changed their roster. And with Bergeron retiring and Krejci not back, I don't know how Boston is a top 10 team still. Those are my two that I can't see why they're so far out of place.
Calgary, maybe they make playoffs, but I don't think they make playoffs this year. Sorry about that, my fellow Flames fans.
I think two teams for me on this list that should be a bit higher is the Vegas Golden Knights for one. I mean, they're coming off their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. They definitely should be on top tier of the list here to be going back to back. And then having the Dallas Stars on, Bleacher Report at number 8. I mean, they've come close a few times in recent years. Stanley Cup final in 2020 and just falling short again last season. I mean, yeah, I think having Jamie Benn, Jason Robertson and Rope Hintz, all those guys on that team, they're getting very close. So yeah, definitely a team to watch out for. They should be much higher on this list.
We did each of our own lists here for our top 16 and wildcard teams that we think. So let's start with our East wildcards. I know that I have teams that, and wildcard meaning who could surprise, not the actual standings. And for me, I have Detroit and Ottawa as two teams that could steal playoff spots this year and make a jump into the playoffs. And I'm higher on Detroit, honestly, than Ottawa. I know lots of people are high on Ottawa, but I'm really high on Detroit. I think that they could just come out and surprise a lot of people and make the team. What about you, Dally?
I mean, I got Detroit on my surprise wildcard team too, and even Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo has been surprisingly good last year. I mean, they had Tage Thompson with a record year, and the young prospects coming in. So I think, Buffalo might just be having that turnaround that they've been looking for the last decade, finally.
I also, as well, have Detroit as my surprise team that could potentially make the playoffs.
Yeah, the Yzer plan is definitely coming into fruition for the Red Wings finally.
All right, the West wild card team that I think could make it, and for me it's Calgary, and Calgary is a team that is all over the place. They could be a team that wins the Pacific Division, and they could be a team that loses the Pacific Division. It all depends on the trades they're going to do, how their top players that they've acquired in the last couple of years perform, how their new additions perform. I think in general, they could miss, they could sneak in and steal a spot, they could win the Pacific, or they could completely come last in the Pacific. It's open for them to be anywhere in their division.
I as well have Calgary as the surprise team. I think with the additions they had last year in Huberdeau, Uyghur, and Kadri, they had off seasons, especially Huberdeau and Kadri. But I think with the new coaching staff they have, and hopefully maybe some lineup mix-ups, they can start producing again, and maybe they can put themselves back into a playoff spot. They did also have major key losses. One of them right now being Walkachuk, Goudreau, Monahan. Those are the key guys I think, they lost.
Toffoli now.
On Toffoli now, and the possibility of subtracting Lindholm if he doesn't re-sign. Noah Hannafin definitely doesn't want to re-sign in Calgary. Hopefully giving Huberdeau and Kadri more playing time will definitely increase their chances of scoring more goals this year.
Yeah, and for me, I have Nashville going in as a surprising Western Conference wildcard. I mean, having the addition of Ryan O'Reilly filling in the shoes, or skates if you will, of Matt Duchene, they're definitely going to have a big depth piece on the forward line there. So, yeah, I think I got Nashville going for that surprising Western Conference team.
All right, let's go down through our list here. This would be, I guess, 8th in the West, and for me at least, and number 16 on my list, I have the Minnesota Wild. Who do you have on your 16, Dallas?
For me, at 16, I got Calgary, so not too far off of even Bleacher Report's notable odds.
I got LA at 16. I don't see them being a big playoff team anymore. I don't know what you guys think about that one, but to me, it's the goalies. I don't think they got the goalies to do it for them.
Yeah, just letting go of Jonathan Quick there to Vegas, and now I think he's even a New York Ranger now. So
Korpisalo going to Ottawa. Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. 15, I have the Seattle Kraken.
I have Buffalo.
And I have Florida.
At 14, I have probably my biggest dropper definitely my biggest dropper from last year's standings is I have the Bruins at 14. No Bergeron, no Krejci, no way. That's what I'm going with.
I got Pittsburgh. I mean, I know they're probably going to be higher than that, but personally, I think they're going 14.
I second with you, Riley. I mean, the Bruins, biggest drop for me too.
At 13, I have the Sabres myself.
I have the New York Rangers taking a big dip.
Minnesota.
Nice, the Wilders. My 12 is Pittsburgh. I also think that they're that's basically saying they're third in their division in my standings, so that's just squeaking in above a wild card. I don't think that they're going to be really contending highly in their own division.
Yeah, I think Minnesota for me at number 12 will be fighting with Dallas and Colorado for top of the Central. So
I got Dallas.
11, I have the LA Kings. I'm a little contradictory to you. I think that they have the player depth, but yes, if they even get solid goaltending, they're in. But if they have terrible goaltending, I don't think they're going to make it. But there's a chance. I think that they're adding a goaltender in the year, like a Hellebuck or maybe a Demko or something. So I could say they might add. I think they're at 11 for me.
11 for me is the Panthers. I think hopefully Bobrovsky, he's usually hot in the playoffs and not so much in the season now, but I hope he can stay hot coming off his playoff run. So yeah, 11 for me.
Yeah, I got the Seattle Kraken here at number 11. I mean, yeah, they had a pretty good sophomore year last year, if you will, but I mean, I don't see them getting as far or even, I'd say they're remotely close to what they were last year, but yeah, I got them at number 11.
At 10, I have the New Jersey Devils. Now, I know the hype is there, but they are young and inexperienced. I don't think the hype matches the production at the end of the day. I think that, they beat the Rangers. They got their one round. Maybe they'll win 2 this year, but they're not a mature enough team to win the Stanley Cup yet, in my opinion. I got them at 10.
10 for me is Seattle.
Number 10 for me is Colorado. I mean, they didn't have a very productive or busy offseason, so yeah, I mean, I can't see Colorado going pretty far in the playoffs this year.
At 9, I have the Panthers myself. I mean, team that goes to the Cup final, you at least got to keep them in the top 10. They lost some important pieces, Stahl, Gudis, and others to note, but I just don't know if they'll be able to make that kind of a run again. I doubt it, really.
9 for me is Tampa Bay Lightning.
Number 9 for me is the LA Kings.
At 8, I have the Dallas Stars. That's actually right on point with where Bleacher Report had them. Now, I've noted before, they're kind of stuck in the middle. They have these old guys, they have these good young stars, but they haven't traded every asset they can to get over the top. So if they start trading some assets and start adding more players and getting way up to the top, maxing out their potential of their team, I think that they're higher on this list, but to me, they're still just 8th.
I got Boston at 8. I am hoping that their duo tandem of goalies stays hot this year.
For me, at number 8, I have the Edmonton Oilers. Ken Holland can make all the moves he wants, but apparently it just hasn't been the right moves, if you will. They haven't been getting the Stanley Cup Finals yet with McDavid and Draisaitl. So
at 7, I have the Rangers. So we're getting into the deeper squad teams here, probably starting at 8, really, with teams that are high, competitors. The Rangers, I think, have a really good chance of doing some things, but they got to prove that last year was a fluke that they lost to the Devils there. Like, they got to prove that was a fluke, so that's where I have them.
Number 7, I have the Dallas Stars. I honestly still think that they're going to be a very deep team, so keep an eye on them, boys.
I got New Jersey Devils at number 7 for me. I know you were saying they're young and whatever, that's why you have them so far down, but I like the young talent they have, and I think adding Toffoli is a huge piece for them. He was Calgary's best scorer. I think he set a career high in Calgary. They're going to be high on that list.
Number 6 for me is the Oilers. Like you said, they got to find a way to put it together, Dally. Until they do, I can't put them in the top 5. They have arguably the 2 best players in the league, but I can't put them in the top 5 teams because so much money is in their 5 best players, and it's just not gone throughout the organization well enough to promote that they're going to be a winning team, different than last year. They're just not that much different.
For me, I got the Hurricanes. I don't agree that they're a number 1 team, but I think they're good enough to be in the top 10.
Yeah, number 6 for me is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, yeah, they still got all their core guys there still. They're making a few tweaks to the retool there in Tampa, but I still think they got a lot left in the tank for them.
At number 5, I have the Hurricanes. They, again, a team that always is at the top of the list, but they have to get there. Like, you have to prove it to me. If you're going to get up in the top 3 teams, like, you got to actually get there. Yes, you can speculate all you want, but they can't get there. So let's see what they can do.
Number 5 for me is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They beat their demons. They got past the first round last year, but what's that going to do for you? You have to go farther than that to get the ultimate prize. And the Toronto faithful, they'll always be faithful to the Maple Leafs, but they're definitely looking for answers in Brad Treliving's first year with the organization. Hopefully these key moves that they've had this offseason can get them past the second round and to where they need to be at the Stanley Cup Finals.
Number 5 for me is the Rangers.
At 4, I have the Leafs. Just out of my top 3, I think the additions they've made probably are the best additions per team in the league. But again, there's so much pressure in that market. There's so much aggressive media that I just cannot say that they are guaranteed to be a top 3 team in this league come the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, I just don't think that they'll make it to the finals. That's my guess on where they're going to be in the East.
Yeah, number 4 for me is the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, Is Erik Karlsson going to be that piece to bring in one more championship back to the City of Champions in the Steel City? So we'll see.
4 for me is the Colorado Avalanche.
My top 3 are all rounded out by the past champs. I think, as kind of I've been saying with the other ones, if you've been there, you still earn a spot in the top 3. And I think Tampa at number 3 for me is a team who could potentially get back there and fight. They have their core. They have about 10 guys still, that have won a cup with them, and I think that's more than enough for them to get back there with the group that they have. So for me, Tampa's at 3.
3 for me is Vegas Golden Knights. They haven't done a whole lot to change their team, and that team just came off a Stanley Cup win, so I think they're sitting good where they're at. So 3 is good for me.
Yeah, at number 3, I had New Jersey. Now, I was really contemplating, I wanted them in my top 3, but I was saying, should they be first, second? But, like you guys said, they're a young team, but just the excitement of the certain players like Timo Meier and Jack Hughes, it's really just having flashbacks, deja vu of, that 2012 Cup run, with Kovalchuk, Zajac, Parise, Elias, Martin Brodeur. Just this team all around is a fun team to watch. Definitely a top 3 pick for me at number 3.
My number 2 is the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, I know Landeskog's out for the year, but if they can use his LTIR, get more guys on the roster, which they have, they added Johansson, added Ross Colton from Tampa, and if they can get Landeskog back in the playoffs, if he's healthy, I see no reason why this team can't go on a run and try and get back to the finals and win again. So they're my number 2.
My number 2 is the Vegas Golden Knights. It's everyone's biggest question. Can they repeat?
Number 2 for me, Dallas, you're probably going to hate me for this pick. I got Toronto. They're a good team. They're a few pieces short from unfortunately passing, or not unfortunately, but hopefully fortunately to pass that second round. And I hope Brad Treliving definitely helped out with some of those off-season acquisitions for him, and I want to see him go far.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying. I want to see Toronto do good as well. But can they exercise those playoff demons, I like the retooling they've done. We've said that before, but is this the year? Every Maple Leaf fan everywhere is saying, is this the year? Over and over.
Yeah, 10 years straight. This is the year. My number 1 is the Vegas Golden Knights to repeat. Really, they lost minor pieces. They kept their whole core intact. Their defense is still the best in the league. I just don't see a way in which they could have an E-bug in net and they would win. They're that good of a team. They proved that they don't need an all-star goalie, but now they get Logan Thompson back. They have Aiden Hill locked up. To me, they're just solid, and I don't know if anyone can dethrone them.
Yeah, my number 1 pick is the Carolina Hurricanes here. I just think their depth pieces, they got a lot of veteran guys on that team on the forward group and the blue line, and they've just locked down their goalie tandem. So yeah, I think Carolina is definitely going to be the guys to come in and say this is our year finally.
Number 1 for me, it burns me to say it, and it's probably a big jump for them, honestly, but I got Edmonton Oilers.
Rough.
I know. It hurts to say that.
Your Flames fans will never forgive you for
this. I know, but your brother's going to love me for saying it.
He will.
I don't know. Just Edmonton's got to figure it out soon, honestly.
Well, they got their scoring figured out, but they need to figure out depth scoring for sure. Goaltending, yeah.
I like this. I like the signing of Zach Hyman. He's a big addition for the Edmonton Oilers, but there's something that they're missing that they just can't seem to find.
Well, they need to quit relying solely on McDavid and Draisaitl. Unfortunately, that is their main source of scoring, though.
Yeah, I don't know where they can go from here. They're scoring 150 points and 120 points a year, and yet playoffs are a different beast. That doesn't matter. You start game 1 of the playoffs, doesn't matter if you scored 150 points. You're back to 0. Their defense is tougher. Goalies are trying harder. It's just a different beast. And as soon as McDavid and Draisaitl get stopped for 2 games, it's over. You lose 2 games against any team in this league, it's over. They can't seem to find it.
Oh yeah, they thought Matthias Ekholm was their Lord and Savior, when they got them at the trade deadline. And, okay, he's been producing, but that wasn't what they needed. And Jack Campbell, they signed him. Oh, we're getting a star goalie from Toronto. Yeah, was not the case, boss.
Yeah, he got beat out by their backup. Cool. I do like Stewart, but unfortunately you did overpay Campbell to not produce.
Right, and now we're going into the new season of who's going to be the number 1, and it's probably going to be Stuart Skinner. And Jack Campbell is getting paid those big bucks to be their backup now, so that's quite unfortunate. But we'll see what the missing pieces this year come trade deadline for them, if they're going to finally make that push to the finals.
That's a wrap on Gameday Tarps podcast, episode 6. Thanks again, and as always, please rate and review.